Welcome to the British Council's Success in IELTS seminar. I'm Sivir, I'm your IELTS trainer today. In today's session, we're going to cover very useful information and top tips about the IELTS exam. Are you all ready? Yes, lovely, lovely, lovely. It's great to see your responses. So let's start with our very first slide. Actually, before we start, I would like to give you some brief information. I do have a set presentation, everyone. I mean, the slides are set and I prepared this before. However, I will be here until I answer all your questions. So what I'm thinking, number one, let's use the chat box wisely from now on, because I will be following your questions from the chat box, and I do not want to miss any of it. So let's use it wisely from now on. I mean, if I ask you a question, please use it. Don't hesitate to use it. However, let's try to keep it for your questions strictly, okay? So I can follow them up easily. That was my first request. And the second one is I would like to announce something. On tonight's show, I think I'll most probably repeat it at the very end too, but I want all of you to know, because some of you may not stay until the end, and I do want everyone to hear this. On 8th of November, I will be running another webinar specifically on writing and reading. Today will be Success in IELTS in general, but it will be dedicated to reading and writing only. 8th of November, everyone. All right. I hope that's noted. And let's start with our first slide, please. Thank you very much. IELTS is, of course, the international English language testing system, and it is jointly owned by the British Council and 2 other institutions. So Alkent asks, is it for the academic module or no? Well, Alkent, I will be covering both modules tonight. So doesn't matter whether you're taking one or the other, please stay with us. And if you have any questions, if I do not cover the specific thing that you are looking for, do not hesitate to ask me questions, please. All right? That's a very brief slide there. Let's move on. By the way, I do have a few slides about the general, how the exam is run generally, to put it precisely. Later, I will be talking about the 4 tests individually, everyone. All right? And okay, wonderful. Now, Rudens 5.5. Well, the highest point is 9. As you know, and 5.5 could be counted as average, but it really depends on what your target is. If you're planning to study in the UK, for instance, you need to score around 6.5 and above. So average, I don't know that word in this context. Mathematically, it is average. 4.5, and 5 could be average, but it depends what you're asking for, what you are taking the exam for. And so let me move this. Wait, I'm just trying to organize my screen. Sorry. Yes. So what is IELTS? This is another brief slide here. And here, I would like to focus on the fact that IELTS is an internationally... Am I studying for... Okay, so Zachariah asks, am I studying for free if I reach it? First of all, where do you want to study for free, and what do you want to reach? That's a very vague question again. So I'm going back to my this very slide. IELTS is an internationally accepted and recognized test. It tests your ability to communicate in English language. It's either for work or for study reasons. And Zachariah, IELTS is an English placement test. It shows that you're eligible to study in many countries, not only in the UK, actually. UK, America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, many European countries. However, it does not provide you a scholarship. It only tells the institution you're applying for the English level of your English level, basically. Which mode is most used, general or academic? Well, Rudens, that depends on the very institution, very company you're applying to. I will cover that question later. Right. So, I mean, it is probably in my next slide, Rudens. That's why. Just wait for that. About the cost questions, ladies and gentlemen, the British Council will definitely answer you, because I work in some countries that, I mean, I don't know how much it costs in your currency. So I may not be able to understand the cost related questions. That's why I'm leaving that question for later. Let me see. So I just said that it's an internationally recognized and respected test. And that's what I remember saying last. And then, so here we are, the first item on the slide, a test of ability to communicate. Yes, it tests your ability to communicate in English language. It's either for work or for study reasons. It is designed to assess your 4 abilities, which are obviously listening, reading, writing, and speaking. IELTS results range from band scores of 9 to 0. And please, don't forget, IELTS is an international testing system. All accents are welcome and there are no cultural or linguistic bias. So that's important. No more questions. Let's move on, please. And why choose IELTS? Well, ladies and gentlemen, more than 3 million candidates take this exam, take the IELTS every year, and currently it is the most popular English test. It's recognized by over 10,000 organizations around the world. Actually, I told you about the countries just 2 minutes ago. UK, Great Britain, America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and many America. I think I forgot to say America, and many European countries do accept IELTS. The accessibility of the test is definitely an advantage for you. And as many of you might already know, there are 2 different modules in IELTS where questions actually started coming in: the academic module and the general training module. We'll talk about these. I think it's the very next slide. I will talk about which one you need for specific goals. Let's go to the next slide, please. Alkent, the next, Zaman, what is the main difference? Okay. Helpful if yes, exactly, Alkent. United States, many universities, institutions do accept IELTS. I'm glad I said this because I think in the first time I forgot to count the USA. I'm glad I remembered to say in the second time. France, absolutely. If you're applying for an English degree, yes. All right. Now, before deciding which module you'll take, ladies and gentlemen, since you have some questions about this, before deciding which module you're going to take, it is a good idea to check with the receiving organization, because the requirements might change. However, I can tell you with total confidence, to further your studies at postgraduate or undergraduate level, you need to take the academic module. And to further your studies at secondary level and to live in an English-speaking country, for instance, you need to take the general training module. All right. And yes, there are some questions. Well, I will come to those. Now, there is a poll question. I hope it's coming. If not, oh, there you are. Which module you're planning to take, for those who already know what to take, actually. Let's see tonight's show's participants and what they're planning to do. Okay. 69%. Well, I've just received the results of the survey. 69% of you guys are taking the academic module. All right. But the rest is taking the general training. And don't worry, I will talk about both modules. I just wanted to get to know you better. That's why I asked you this question, and I will be asking a few more survey questions as poll questions as we go along. Right, okay, so let's move on to the next slide, please. Do I have any notes? All right, okay. This is a very brief slide. I don't need any notes, actually. I was looking for my notes. So here, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at this slide, the listening test and the speaking are both in purple color, as you see. The listening test is exactly the same, regardless of whether you're taking the academic or the general training module. The speaking test is also in the same format. However, that does not mean that every single question will be the same. And as you see, reading and writing parts are in different colors. Because writing and reading tests on each module are slightly different. I will talk about the differences in detail later in the presentation. And what else to cover in this one? Right there. Total test time. Let's not forget to mention the timing of the test. IELTS test takes 2 hours 44 minutes plus 10 minutes transfer time at the end, and these 10 minutes will be given to you at the end of the listening section. And next slide, please. Yes, the validation of the test is for 2 years, ladies and gentlemen. Rudin is asking, the validation of the test is 2 years? Yes, it is. It will be valid for 2 years. And now this is the 9-band scale. As we have already covered, IELTS results range from band scores of 9 to 0, everyone. The IELTS 9-band system is used to measure and report scores in a consistent manner. Examiners are trained in line with globally accepted standards to ensure consistency and equality of their assessments. We won't focus too much on the band scores today, but if you would like to get further information, you can find the band descriptors on ielts.britishcouncil.org, and please visit. Actually, let me try to write here, because last time many people said, what did you just say? Public versions of band descriptors. Descriptors. There you are. When you try to find this on our website, you will definitely get some information. Okay, that's another brief slide there. We won't focus too much on the details of these bends. As I said, let's move on. I think we got one more slide before we start talking about the test, about the 4 tests individually. Let's see. Well, there are questions related to the speaking part. There are questions about, how can I say the UK, especially medical internship, is necessary? Well, IELTS is necessary to study in the UK, regardless of what you are going to study, everyone. So that was Ayubi. That was Ayubi's question. And let's see, I cannot start talking about the differences of IELTS and other exams, guys. This presentation is exclusively dedicated to the IELTS, so I won't be talking about other exams, really. The next slide, please. All right, okay, so ladies and gentlemen, Zainab, UKVI, we'll save that question for later. Please remind me, not now, because I've got a lot to say. Report forms. Now, let's talk about this. After you take your IELTS exam, you will be sent one personal copy of the TRF, as I say, test report form, TRF. One copy of the test report form you will receive. Maximum 5 digital copies of the test report form may be sent to the organizations, institutions, schools you're applying to. And if you want more, it's available. However, there might be some extra charges. Next slide, please. Right, okay. Now, the 4 modules. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got one thing to say. Till now, I tried to answer all your questions. Can I request all the 5 copies at the same time? Remember, Rudins, 1 copy you will be receiving. 5 digital copies can be sent to the organizations that you're planning to apply to. Tips and tricks, Sadie. Now, wait. Almost there, almost there. Until now, I tried to answer all your questions because I was talking about the test in general. However, I will be talking about the 4 tests individually now. I will be starting with speaking, I suppose. Now, I want to use our time as efficiently as possible. And I want you to be benefiting from this presentation from this webinar as much as you can. So how about this? Let's make a deal. When I'm talking about the speaking, please ask questions about speaking only. When I'm going through the reading section, please ask questions about the reading section only. And imagine you have other questions. Wait. At the end, I will leave time for a Q&A session. You can fire all the questions you want, and then we can move on. Does that make sense? Do we all agree on that? Lovely. Okay. I mean, it kind of makes sense to me in terms of maximizing our benefits on both sides mutually, I mean. So cool. Lovely. So first of all, a little introduction I would like to make. I'm an English teacher and I'm an IELTS teacher and student trainer. I'm with students every single day. And I know that you want to get a good score in IELTS to prepare for your future. I totally understand that and I totally support you. If you would like to get a good score in IELTS, you really need to understand the format of the 4 tests, ladies and gentlemen, what is expected of you and the grading criteria. In other words, how you will be assessed, how your exam will be evaluated. Your job will be much easier if you know these. That's why I will be talking about the 4 tests individually. All right, let's move on to the next slide, please. And we will be starting with speaking, I suppose. Yes, I'm right. Okay, next one. The speaking test, ladies and gentlemen, takes 11 to 14 minutes. One of you guys wrote in the chat box, I heard the speaking test takes 20 minutes. Am I right? That's why I neglected to answer that question at that time, because now I'm answering your question. The speaking test, Zaman, yes, you will be talking 2 minutes in part 2. I'll come to that in 1 minute. You will be seeing it very clearly in my chart. The speaking test takes 11 to 14 minutes. I'm underlining the fact, the timing of the test. The face-to-face nature of the IELTS speaking test is definitely an advantage for our candidates. It's as close to a real-life situation as a test can get. Your speaking will be recorded throughout the test. This is, by the way, this is not only to assess your speaking skills, but to make sure you get the fairest assessment of your speaking skills. Remember, you will be assessed on 4 criteria, plural, a boring teacher speaking. Number 1, fluency and accuracy, vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. These are the 4 criteria, how we assess your speaking. And the 4 marks are averaged, which will give your final score. No, they all have the same weight, same emphasis, Volodymyr. Next slide, please. Are the assessment criteria placed according to the... Oh, yes. Okay. So, yes, for those who are watching us on YouTube, I think you can see the presentation, but you can't see the chat box on Zoom. So my colleagues always remind me to read the questions, and I always forget. But I will be remembering from now on. Sorry, guys. Volodymyr asked whether the 4 criteria, do they have the same weight, or do they have different importance values? And I said no, they're all equal. And the speaking test format, the second slide of the speaking test. Now, the speaking test is divided into 3 sections. Part 1, introduction and general questions, I say. Part 2, long term, or it can be referred to as cue card. And Part 3, analytical discussion. What if my accent won't help me on pronouncing? Well, Sadie, now, here, that's a very main concern. However, as long as you pronounce the words clearly, as long as your stress is the stress you make is okay, you will be fine. Uh, Everyone has a different accent. I do have a different accent. I'm sure your teachers at various universities have different accents, and they're all okay. There are no cultural or linguistic bias. No one is allowed to grade you on your accents. That's not fair. This is an English placement exam. As long as you sound clearly, as long as you're able to make a healthy communication, that is perfect. And ladies and gentlemen, let's go back to talking about part one of the speaking test. Here, questions are quite general, and I think you should be able to find something even though you're not interested in the topic. Please be prepared to talk about your family, your house, hobbies, holidays, and please give extended answers rather than one word. Yes, no, I don't know, or short answers. Please avoid. We need data to be able to assess your speaking. YouTube question. I heard that if you plan to work in UK as a doctor, for the visa you need academic module, but would it be acceptable to have academic and work not as a doctor? Well, this is a question from YouTube. It depends on the job you're applying to. Remember, I said, well, for example, if you're applying for certain courses in the UK, the general training module can be accepted. However, I cannot give you a full list of all these courses right now. That's why I think the safest choice, the safest plan would be to check with the organization, check with the company. Some banks, for example, do have some incentives depending on your IELTS score. I know in many countries that I worked in. However, some banks do accept academic only, and some banks accept both. So I cannot know what happens in each country. That's why the safest option, as I said, please check with the organization. And part two, ladies and gentlemen, here you will be given a task card which you cannot change. Then you will have 1 minute to think, to prepare, or to take notes. And you will be given 2 minutes. You will be given 2 minutes to speak about this topic. The examiner will not be doing much. It will be your show totally. And do not worry if the examiner interrupts and asks you another question. That's perfectly fine, and there is no need to worry. What about American Manual of English? Shall I try teaching myself the British version? Absolutely not, Mia. You will be perfectly fine with your American accent. So, having answered that question, I will be back to my part three of the speaking test. In part three, you will be discussing more abstract aspects of the topic from part two with the examiner, and your part two and part three questions will be linked, will be related for your information. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Right. Please take a moment to look at the sample task one question. Part one, exactly. Part one question. And I would like to read it out loud as well. The examiner asks the candidate about him, herself, his or home, work or studies, and other familiar topics. Example question. How often do you watch television? Why? Why not? Which television channel do you watch? Why? Do you enjoy the advertisements on television? Do you think most programs on television are good? Why? Why not? If I use American words, will it make my score worse? Absolutely not. No, this is still, whether American or Australian or British English, it is standard accepted English that is currently used. You will be fine. Now, as you see on the slide, this question, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's very fair to say that it does not require too many strategies, preparation, or prior knowledge. And on the next slide, we will see a sample part two question. If we can. Yes, there we are. This is a sample part two and part three question. And let me read the question first. Describe a friend of your family you remember from your childhood. You should say who the person was, how your family knew this person, how often this person visited your family, and explain why you remember this person. A very typical part 2 question. And part 3, what do you think makes someone a good friend to a whole family? Do you think we meet different kinds of friends at different stages of our lives? In what ways are these types of friend different? How easy is it to make friends with people from a different age group? Well, there you are. And again, as I said, your part 2 and part 3 questions are linked. Uh, Now there is one question. No, two maybe. Is it bad and take penalties if I talk more than 2 minutes on part 2? Well, Gunal, the examiner will stop you when your time is up. So I don't want any of you to worry about timing. In the speaking exam, we'll do that for you. We will be timing you anyway. All I want you to do is to focus on your communication with the examiner. That's the most important thing. Timing will take care of that. Can you give us some sample answers? Of course. Well, let's talk about part 2, shall we? Now, remember, in part 2, the candidate is doing most of the talking. And if I were you, I would definitely take small, short notes in my 1 minute preparation time because it's an exam in the end. You might be a little excited, or you may not remember all the things that you want to say at once. So I think you should make a small plan. Now the question is, describe a friend of your family you remember from your childhood. You should say who the person was, how your family knew this person, how often this person visited your family, and explain why you remember this person. All right. I will be talking about my mother's best friend, Olivia. Aunt Olivia was my mother's friend from work, and they were very close. And she worked as a mechanical engineer at the computer company, at this computer company. Well, I don't want to give you the name right now. That's why. She was a colleague of my mother, and that's where they met at work many, many years ago, and they got along very well. And my sister and I, we got along with her children as well. So we spent most of our weekends together. We did a lot of activities, including hiking and biking and what else? We went to some festivals together. Actually, I have to say, we were very close. We were very close to them. And I remember this person specifically. Number one, she was a very sweet person, and particularly, she was very good with children. It might be because she had studied something about education. She was trained as a teacher, and then she started working with computers, and then she did her second degree. She had a very interesting education life as well. And I can go on and on and on, as you can imagine. What if I have a speechless nature? Ruden's asking this question. What do you mean you have a speechless nature? Do you mean you don't like talking that much? Or you are not good at communication? Let's see. Did my answer satisfy you, by the way? Well, just I didn't want to take much of your time. Well, what if you pause too often? Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, guys, no problem. Well, Rudens, so in this case, okay, now some people say, well, I don't like talking that much. Or I'm not good at this. I don't like sharing my opinions with other people. I've heard all that. But, ladies and gentlemen, imagine there's an examiner in front of you, and this person needs data to assess your speaking skills. This person is there to help you, to get you talking in order to reach your target, your goal, your score. I don't know why you need it, but you need this exam to reach something. So, and the examiner is there to help you. So you need to be contributing a little too, right? You need to be giving some data to this very person so he or she can assess your speaking skills. So in this case, you have to be producing some work, some communication. That's all I can say, Rudens. What if I pause too often? Now, about that, as long as it sounds natural, as long as the examiner understands you well, you answer the questions asked, that should be fine. I may pause too, but remember, you got 2 minutes in part two and 14 minutes in the whole speaking exam. Try to do your best to give enough data to the examiner so you can be assessed as well as you can. Do you have any suggestions to cope with shyness in speaking? Oh, I wish I had a magic wand for you, Bilal. I'll come to this later, all right? And let me see if I'm missing any questions. I think we're fine. Okay, next slide, please. Now, speaking tips to remember. I've got some tips here. Now, about the pause, I've got something to read upon. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. Now, this I'm reading from the Speaking Band Descriptor, Band 7, in fluency and coherence. So it means in order to reach Band 7 in fluency and coherence criteria, listen to this. It says, the candidate speaks at length without noticeable effort or loss of coherence, may demonstrate language-related hesitation at times, or some repetition and or self-correction. What does that mean? Now, it means it is okay to make some mistakes. It is okay to pause a little, and it's okay to correct yourself. People make mistakes while speaking in their native language. This is perfectly acceptable. All you need to do is to relax and focus on your communication. Speak clearly and elaborate. In other words, extend your answers. These are the most important things. And speaking from experience, please do not try to memorize large portions of speech and try to repeat this during the test. This undoubtedly adds extra stress and sounds very unnatural. We do not recommend this approach. And do not try to speak faster in order to sound more fluent. It doesn't work. It will again result in blocking your communication with your examiner and extra stress. It won't sound natural either. Don't forget, English is the only language you need to communicate in throughout the IELTS test. Do not use your first language unless it's English. And please don't worry about your mistakes. It isn't the number of mistakes or it isn't the number of grammatical mistakes that matters, but how seriously these mistakes block your communication. Focus on your communication. Focus on expressing yourself as well as you can. Well, very good question, Emiliano. So in the test day, if I don't understand the speaking topic, is there any possibility to change it? Now, number one, Emiliano, you cannot change your task card in task 2. And the questions will be very straightforward, very clear, very easy to understand. However, if you do not understand the question, the examiner is allowed to paraphrase the question once only in each part of the speaking test. Once in part 1, if needed, once in part 2, if needed, and once in part 3, if needed. Cool. Let's move on, please. I've got 3 frequently asked questions here. Now, we have recently added these questions actually because I get these questions all the time. So I wanted to make sure these are answered. Number 1, how candidates improve their speaking? Well, as a teacher, I would say listening to a wide range of authentic English materials will help you a great deal. First, it will help you become familiar with more words, phrases, pronunciation features too. And these are vitally important while improving languages, really, not only English, but any other language. Listening to BBC radio, lectures, podcasts is definitely a good idea. And I think starting working on subjects that interest you first, and then moving on with others might also work. And recording yourself while speaking and listening to it later is something I suggest my students. And while speaking, try to apply and practice what you learn from the listenings. And while you're listening to yourself, pay attention to your fluency, pauses. Look, I mean, if you paused really too many times and it is kind of blocking your communication, then it is too much. You would know that it's too much. Because when you ask me, yes, mirror is my best friend, says Saidi. Absolutely. TED Talks, Rudin. Absolutely. I love TED Talks. I'm the biggest fan. I try to attend, as much as I can. If I'm in a country and if there's a TED Talk, I'll definitely go for it. Yeah. And they're available on YouTube. They're available on their own website. Definitely. And so while speaking, try to apply and practice what you learn from the listenings. I mean, while you listen to yourself, pay attention to your fluency, pauses, hesitations, choice of words. In contrast to the traditional disclaimers, this is something you can and should try at home. And right, this was Emiliano's question. That's already been answered. Thank you very much for the great question. Candidates can ask clarification questions. Yes, once in every part. Lovely. That was a good section, by the way. Let's move on, please. Okay, before we move on to listening, any questions about the speaking section, ladies and gentlemen? Where the applicants can find information about the topics which might be asked by the examiner. Now, Helen, another great question, actually. I was planning to mention it at the very end of the presentation. I do have a slide on the useful, official British Council IELTS materials. On Road to IELTS, for example, or in Cambridge IELTS books, there are past papers and sample questions. Wait, Helen, I will come and talk about this again at the very end of the presentation. What is the most important thing in speaking? Well, the 4 criteria are the most important things, Sasha. Do you remember the 4 criteria? The ones that I said are used to assess the candidates. Remember those? I think they are the most important things, which are fluency and accuracy, vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. Look, I'm not saying accent, your pronunciation. So these are the 4 most important things in speaking. You're very welcome, Sasha. Road to IELTS, there are sample questions. Yeah. And you can also check the past papers and compare for yourself. Because when you say, is it as easy as this? Well, it really is it really depends on the person. Because the questions on that very test, you may have found them very easy. But one person might say, oh, they're quite hard. So easy is a very open-ended adjective. So is hard. So I would say, Kent, use Road to IELTS and then look at these Cambridge past papers and then you compare. Because they are all easy for me, to be honest. And I'm not, I wouldn't know which one you would you see more difficult and more easy. YouTube question. Am I correct thinking I could get any job passing through academic module? I could get any job passing. Well, IELTS is very well recognized among companies. I know that in the UK, in Turkey, in Czech Republic, the countries that I have worked in Kuwait, in Thailand, most companies would skip the English interviews part. But again, I don't know where this person is writing from and what companies she is trying to get into. So I don't know exactly. So, sorry, I missed the part we talked about candidates' accent. Well, that is Najaf. No, your accent does not affect your score. However, your pronunciation does. So there is a premium HTC Desire 816 says, I have a problem with spelling. How can I improve? And I do see that you have a spelling problem because improve is spelled incorrectly. IMPROVE. So I can see the spelling problems, and I think in order to solve this problem, murder this problem, reading and writing a lot. That would help you. Well, the speaking examiner is, well, they're mostly from the UK. However, in your country, there will be some local English teachers, and they might be hired by the British Council as well. So yeah, there can be easily. British Council is open to all nationalities. And ladies and gentlemen, listening. I think that's time. It's time for the speaking section, shall we? The first slide, please. Yes, here we are. I'm going to start again with an overview of the listening test. To begin with, I want to say the recordings get harder as you progress through the test. Well, I started with some bad news, but the answers appear in order. That's another important information. The recordings will take 30 minutes always, and there will be 10 minutes transfer time, which will be given to you at the end of the listening test. Okay. There will be 40 questions always, 10 questions per each section always, and all questions are equal always. The recordings will be played once only, always. And the answer sheets, answer sheet, sorry. I meant to say answers must be transferred onto your answer sheet, always. You're allowed to use pencils only, always. All right. And now let's go to the next slide. All right. Okay. So, remember the bad news I just gave? The recordings get harder as you progress through the test. That was the bad news. Now, the good news here, the answers appear in order. So you don't need to go back and forth to find the correct answers. That's good news, I suppose. Variety of task types are used. Please familiarize yourself with different question types, before you actually take the test. Well, Premium HTC Desire 816 again says, what about speaking and grammar? How to improve? Well, another spelling mistake. Grammar is spelled with double A. There are no E's in grammar. GRAMMER. Boring teacher here. So, speaking and grammar, well, grammar, I think you can work on your own, I suppose. And with speaking, I've just talked in the frequently asked questions. So I don't want to, repeat this again. Well, we may come back to that later. So I was saying, variety of task types are used, right? I covered the second item on the slide. And then I was saying, please familiarize yourself with different question task types before you take the test. Now, it is very fair, and I'm very confident to say that IELTS listening test is very fair. Why? Because you are given time ahead of the recordings to read the questions. And I think it is vital to use this time efficiently. You can analyze and predict what you will be searching for. You're also given time to check your answers after each group of questions. You should use this time efficiently too. And there are some questions. I will come back to those questions, ladies and gentlemen. And after the fourth recording finishes, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers from the question booklet to your answer sheet. So you are given time before this recording starts and later after each recording, there will again be some time to check your answers. And so, how to cope with multiple choice questions, which I consider to be the most difficult in the listening part. I agree, Helen, because as the recording goes, you may not be able to read the whole sections. So in this case, if there is a multiple choice question among the questions, I think in the time given for preparation, you should make sure to read A, B, C, D thoroughly, intensively. What about the listening? All the recordings have the British accent? No, Emiliano. You should be prepared to hear American, Australian, and even some foreign accents too, because you hear these accents in everyday life. So why not in IELTS? Yeah, be prepared for that too. Next slide, please. Okay, some tips to remember. Now, let's see. What if, all right, excuse me for that, by the way. I wasn't expecting the bell to ring. What if I made a mistake, but the word would be correct? Will I get, very good question, Natalie. Now, if you misspell the word in listening, you will lose the question completely, I'm afraid. Now, look, right on this very slide, spelling and capitalization both count. You have to be very careful. If you write Albania with a lowercase a at the beginning, you will definitely lose that question. If you spell Helen, well, London, or with a lowercase h and lowercase l, again, you will be losing the word. Spelling and capitalization both count. Now, Zainab, a very smart question there. Can I fill in all the answer sheet with all capitals? Yes, you can. You can write all in capitals if you are really concerned about capitalization. Other tips. Well, these spelling in capitals, I think they're very good tips. And what if I make a mistake? All right, I got that. And let's see. You would lose the point, I said. Different accents. All right, I can go back to my notes and also the presentation. Underline keywords. All right. Right. Okay. Underline keywords in questions. Right. Look for keywords, ladies and gentlemen. And with your pencil in your hand, you're allowed to underline, circle, take notes when you first look at the questions. Make sure you understand what type of answers are needed. When you're given time to read the questions ahead of the recordings, you should try to predict as much as you can. Say, is it a number, a day, a name, an adjective? For example, there is a name and there's a blank next to it. That might be a surname, and you might be expecting to hear some spelling. Try to predict as much as you can and be aware of distractors. If I mistype a letter, the question is gone, I'm afraid, Sadie. Beware of distractors. Just because you hear something for the first time, it doesn't necessarily have to be the answer. The speaker might go back and reverse the answer. So beware. And all right, I think it is important to remind you that there are no penalties for wrong answers. So do attempt all the questions. In other words, do not leave any blank answers, because technically, blank answer and an incorrect answer, the same thing. You're right. Oh yes, Zainab, the question would not be correct. So you would lose the question. Absolutely. Bad news, Zainab, but sorry. The questions are in order. Yes, Rudens, the questions are definitely in order. Spelling is definitely mandatory, Maya. It is one of the criterias, actually. As I said, spelling and capitalization count. Next slide, please. Now, some frequently asked questions for the listening section. How can candidates improve their listening skills? Well, it's extremely important to practice listening to a wide range of authentic resources that might include not only TV series, but also educational videos, podcasts, lectures, and documentaries. The reason why I underlined that, I underlined TV series would not be enough, because in the listening test, section 3 and section 4 will be quite academic, especially section 4 will be a lecture, as you know, and TV series won't help you with that. However, podcasts, educational videos, lectures, and documentaries might. Let's see. Listening songs won't help me. Well, I hope they do. Try and see. And some students are not satisfied with the speed of speed of recording, and as the last tests show, it's really matter how to deal with it, and of course the quality of the sound. The speed of the recording, well, it's always very natural. It's never faster than the way people speak generally. So, well, that's a nice joke, Riddance. Very sweet. So in this case, the speed of the recording should not be a concern, because it will be in the same speed as you hear people on TED Talks, on educational videos, on lectures. So make sure you aim for different materials with different accents as well. I'm afraid there is no good substitute. I mean, there is no substitute for good practice. Whatever you listen to is good practice. If you have a smartphone or a tablet, I think Zainab was asking for some useful stuff. If you have a smartphone or a tablet, you may download many free British Council applications, Learn English podcasts, audio and video. Great videos are some of those, and I use them in my lessons too. And you might find lots of stuff on learnenglish.britishcouncil.org and take IELTS.britishcouncil.org. Number 2, how will candidates hear the recordings? All recordings will be heard by all candidates at the very same time, not individually. And number 3, I just wanted to repeat this here again. Are spelling and capitalization important in the IELTS test? Yes, they are very important. They are one of the most important criteria, really. YouTube question. Will we have time to preview the questions before first part of the listening starts, at the very, very, very beginning, I mean? Well, you don't need to see the questions at the very, very, very beginning, because when the listening starts, you will open your booklets and you will hear this. Now you have some time to look at questions from 1 to 4, and you will look at questions from 1 to 4. You will be given some time. The time given will change from between 15 seconds to 45 seconds, in 45 seconds, obviously, in section 4. So follow the instructions. Instructions will guide you through the test. And let's move on, please. Are we all ready for the reading test? Let's see. Okay, the review, please. Great. Prudence is very active. I love your contribution. Thank you very much. Let's see. Okay, another overview. The reading test includes 40 questions always, spread over 3 articles always, and you got 1 hour always to answer these 40 questions. Unlike the listening test, you will not be given extra time to transfer your answers, so you have to transfer your answers as you answer the questions. Please don't forget. And your answers must be written in pencil only, just like the listening test. There are no colored pens or pencils used. You need to use your pencil only to transfer your answers from the question booklet on the answer sheets. Next slide, please. Now, let's see. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at the fourth item. 1 hour to answer 40 questions on 3 texts. Let's do the maths. You have 20 minutes per text. And ladies and gentlemen, 20 minutes may not be enough for you to read the text intensively, thoroughly, and then answer the questions. So you need to be working on your skimming and scanning skills, which I will be talking about in the next slide. And again, at the very end of the slide, no time to transfer your answers. Please, please, please don't forget. Very important. Next slide, please. Now, I think I can talk about the techniques, especially skimming and scanning on this for this very slide. Let's see. Before you take the test, I believe you need to familiarize yourself with different task types. And you should also practice, as I said, some reading skills, especially skimming and scanning, because in 20 minutes, you need to be reading a text about around 800, 900 words, and you need to be answering questions. So I think you need to skim the text and then start scanning. Now, skimming means looking over an article or paragraph to identify the key themes or general ideas. This includes paying attention to title, subtitles if there are any, keywords, and topic sentences. I suggest you read the first and the last sentence of each paragraph and make notes around the article as you do this. Then this shouldn't take more than 2 to 3 minutes. Then read the questions with specific purpose. What do the questions want? And now start scanning. Scanning is, of course, when you are looking for specific information, and after you read the questions, when you're scanning, you will see that it will be easier to follow. Well, this is my very personal idea. When I'm doing teacher trainings especially, this is what we practice with teachers too. With students, some might say, honestly, they say they don't want to spend time reading or skimming the text. They want to focus on questions, and some say it works, but my students who tried my technique were always quite glad, were happy too. So you see, look, these are two different approaches. Try both and see which one works better for you. All right. And like the listening test, there are no penalties for wrong answers. So again, attempt all the questions. Let me see. I'm trying to read the question. Okay, I've done some tests. Now, I'm going through the questions. If I'm going to answer them, I will read it for you. So Gunnar says, I did not hear your tip. Don't worry, you can listen to this presentation tomorrow again, and you can catch it, darling. What if I read the first question and search it in the text? Well, now, Rudens, these are all different techniques. If you think it works, go ahead. But finding the answer to the first question and then wait, let me read. What if I read the first question, search for it in the text for the answer, then read the second question? Yeah, okay, I understand it correctly. Okay, I think it would consume a bit too much time, but again, see if it works. Now we're talking about the reading test, so please ask questions about the reading. I don't want to lose time about speaking questions right now. Well, there was a question from my fellow English teacher, Maria. I will come to that question later, Maria. And then let's see, what have I got? I think this slide is perfectly covered. Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to these questions. Right, so how can candidates improve their reading skills? Well, Selim, scanning is just looking for information. You know how you scan something? After you skim the text, and then after you skim the text, after you read the questions carefully, now you understand what you're looking for. So start going back to the text and trying to find the correct answers to your questions. And I like the fact that you used elaborate. Lovely. Can you elaborate? Lovely question. Sometimes when I read a text, I forgot I was searching for exactly Hassan. So that's why you don't need to read the text. This is the text. You're not reading for pleasure. You need to skim as well as you can in order to answer these questions. If you want to read some articles for pleasure, then you can do it at home, not in the IELTS exam. Well, I wish I had a magic wand or some magic for the first frequently asked question, but I don't. However, I do know how you can improve your reading skills. Read as much as you can. The boring teacher is speaking again. Read newspapers, magazines, journals. The more variety, the better, of course. I advise my students to read 2 articles on environmental issues, 2 articles on technology, and 2 articles of their own choice every week. And if you read 6 to 7 articles every week, you will see how much you improve so soon. Question 2. How can candidates use colored pens or pencils during the IELTS reading test? No, 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 you can't. You're only allowed to use. Of course, I love Harry Potter. Yeah, it does. It's a great book, and the language is I think quite moderate. It's not written for professionals, for example. So I think Harry Potter will help. Exactly, Fatosh. Social media, internet, newspapers on the internet. Go to BBC, go to New York Times, go to The Guardian. They will help. How can candidates skim and scan efficiently? I think we've covered this. Remember my tips? Look at the title, if and headings and diagrams if there are any, and then read the first and last sentence of each paragraph to determine the theme. And make notes as you do this, underline, circle, etc. Then read with specific purpose. Read the questions carefully, determine what answers you are looking for, and it's good that I remembered. Don't expect to find the exact same words in the article and in the questions. Synonyms will be used, and that's why. Which electronic book I should use? I don't know. What can I do about my reading skills until Saturday? In 2 days' time. Well, start reading now, Rudens, and don't stop until Saturday. That's a good tip. And I was saying, yeah, you might be ask synonyms. For example, let's see. I'm thinking. Oh God. Oh yeah. Okay. This. If you see the word advantage in the text, the word perk, P-E-R-K, might be in the question or vice versa, and you may see the word drawback instead of disadvantages. So beware. Be ready for synonyms. And right. Why don't we move on to the next slide then? Should I translate each word? which I don't understand in the text, which I read. When I read, I'm increasing my reading skill. Well, Guna. It if it prevents you from understanding the sentence exactly, go for it. But if you think you can survive, if you think you're enjoying what you're reading, then don't worry. And Helen, true, false, not given, especially false and not given. Now, I receive this question every webinar, believe me. And that's why on the 8th of November, hopefully, we will be running one webinar specifically on reading and writing, because in these webinars, we don't have enough time to go to go over everything. So join us again. And the writing part, everyone. Are you ready? Let's move on to the next slide. Now, on this slide, AC refers to academic and general, GT refers to general training. The writing test is divided into two parts, and you're expected to answer both of these questions in 1 hour. Task 1 differs depending on the module you're taking. In academic module, you need to analyze a diagram. Applicants should identify, say, 2 to 4 main points, significant points in each diagram, and describe what they see. You may need to make comparison between data as well. In general training, however, well, there is a question about the ID. I will come to that question. Don't worry. In general training, however, there is a letter writing of at least 150 words. By the way, this 150 word applies to task 1 on academic module as well. In both modules, you need to write at least 150 words. And there's a recommended time of 20 minutes. And let me see. Am I allowed to use my earphones during the reading section? No, you're not allowed to use anything except from your pencil eraser in the reading section. I hope that was clear, Sadie. So Alkins and Sadie are having fun. All right. Let's see. That's task 1. And in the, have I said yes? I talked about the letter. Right. One more thing. In the general training module, the tone of the letter, will be determined in the question whether it should be a formal or informal letter. All right. Premium HTC Desire 816. If you have a reading problem, as I said, I wish I had a magic wand. In order to improve your reading, I think you should read as many articles as possible. And try to go to takeielts.britishcouncil.org and learnenglish.britishcouncil.org and try to find upper intermediate IELTS reading sections, reading questions, reading tests, and do as much as you can. And we talked about task 1 and task 2. For task 2, for both academic and general test takers are expected to write at least 250 words. Here's a tip. Very important tip. Task 2 contributes twice as much to your overall score. So it is vitally important to do well in task 2. Well, especially if you're targeting high scores, I think you should make sure to do well, to produce good work for task 2. I think to master task 1 and task 2, make sure you cover, you address to all parts of the question. In task 2, for both modules, develop your ideas and support them with examples. Make sure you you have examples in your body paragraphs in task 2. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, how do we assess your writing? Here are the 4 criteria: task achievement for task 1, task response for task 2, cohesion and coherence, vocabulary, and grammar range and accuracy. Now, I think 1, 3, and 4 are quite straightforward. No, task 2 is not worth 6 points. I'm just saying it contributes twice as much to your overall score. Imagine task 1 is X and task 2 is 2X. And then we get the average of these. All right. So task achievement, task response, vocabulary, and grammar range and accuracy are quite straightforward. But let me go into number 2, cohesion and coherence. Now, cohesion and coherence means that your essay is logically organized and has a clear structure with an introduction, at least 2 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Your essay should be divided into paragraphs, with each paragraph having a clear central idea. Now, this is a very common mistake. Candidates write the first body paragraph, and then the second body paragraph, the very same idea is argued further. There is nothing new, but your body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2 should have 2 different central ideas. Now, YouTube question. Academic module task 1. Is it necessary to make a running off conclusion at the, very good question, conclusion at the end of the chart description? To paraphrase what the chart represents, does the length of bodies matter? Oh, right. Okay. Bilal's question is separate. Okay. So now, very good question. Let's go back, please. Can we go back? Thank you. Right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you see, task 1 and task 2. Task 1 is a description of information, usually in the form of a diagram, a chart, a line graph, a bar chart, a pie chart, a line graph, and so on. Now, here we expect you to write an analytical report rather than an essay. So normally, I don't think, and we don't think as Cambridge, as British Council, we do not think you need a conclusion. However, I think it's better and ideal. Task 1 work should include minimum 3 paragraphs. Minimum 3 paragraphs would definitely do the job. For example, an introductory sentence where you paraphrase the question. This is very important for academic test takers. I'm giving you the description of a good answer for task 1. So first, what is that? First, you write an introductory sentence where you describe the data, what you can see in the picture. In other words, paraphrase the question. Then second, you can write an overall paragraph, an overview paragraph, where you describe the most distinctive features of the data given. You can use your superlatives here. Then a detailed paragraph. However, some of my students think just like this YouTube participant. They say we feel better if we write something like a conclusion to finalize our words, our ideas. So in this case, I can say that you can change the order of what I've just said. You can write in this form, in this format, in this order. Introductory sentence, detailed paragraph, and an overall sentence. But overall doesn't necessarily mean conclusion. As I said before, the most distinctive features of the data can be addressed here. Okay, and let's see. Does length of bodies matter in task 2? Bilal, I'll come to that question. Let me see if this question was answered satisfactorily. Oh, but no, I can't because that's a YouTube participant, right? Okay. All right. I cannot get any feedback right now. Okay. Where can I find a list of topics for the letter in general test? Why don't you look at the model questions in Road to IELTS and then Cambridge past papers, Cambridge IELTS past paper books? 5 to 12. I mean, it's better to use the most recent one. So 5 to 12, why don't you go for these riddance? Let's move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so let me see. Oh, the body, right. Now, Bilal's question reminded me of task 2. And now, as I explained task 1, I would like to say a few things about task 2. Actually, on this slide, it kind of covers. For a successful, ideal task 2, everyone, you need to write at least 4 paragraphs. This applies to both academic and general training test takers. Introduction, development, and conclusion. 2 development paragraphs, 2 body paragraphs would be good. 3 possible, but remember you got 40 minutes. So organize your time, keep to timing. You will be managing your own time, so it is your responsibility. Okay? Please have a look at the slide. There are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I did not count incorrectly, there are 9 items on this list. Please have a look. And I would like to talk about something else. I would like to introduce you the concept of power writing. Power, as in P-O-W-E-R, P for plan, O for organizing, W for writing, E for evaluating, and R for revising. So plan, organize, write, evaluate, and revise. I think, especially in task 2, it's very important to make a short, half a minute, maximum 1 minute plan, because you may get lost in the development paragraphs. You may get carried away. That's what I mean by getting lost. You may be carried away and may talk about too many things. However, you cannot be off subject. Your time is limited. And you need to be producing good work in this time. Does a or in and other prefixes count as words? Well, prefixes are part of words. For example, inflexible. In and flexible are not separate words. It's one word. So prefixes don't count as words, obviously, but a, an, the articles, you mean. Articles do count as words. Numbers, either written in words or numbers, they are counted as words. All the words. Okay, YouTube question. I wonder, how should I actually count the amount of words? First of all, the number of words. Words are countable, so you cannot use amount. The number of words. How you mean this question should be rephrased? So you mean, how can you count your own words? All words count, including articles, prepositions. Prepositions are words too. Exactly, Marianne. Articles are words too. Are there any penalties for handwriting? Now, that's right on the slide. Look, write legibly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 7th item on the list, write legibly. Ladies and gentlemen, if we cannot understand your handwriting, how are we supposed to grade it? Think about that. Now, Zainab, shall I state my word count? No, you don't need to. No. It's our job to count your words one by one. Don't worry about that. Now, Fasha says, what if I have like 5 to 7 words less than needed? Now, that's a very common question too. In this case, we'll look at the content. how well your writing is. And then we will decide on the grade. Should we write with pen or pencil? Now, that's a very good question, Alkent. In writing only, you can use a pen if you wish. In writing only. Listening and writing sections will be in pencil only, as you remember. Next one, please. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's a sample task 2 question. Countries are becoming more and more similar because people are able to buy the same products everywhere in the world. Do you think this is a positive or negative development? Give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. So that's a very typical task 2 question. Does the color of pen matter? Does it matter? No, it doesn't. But don't take a risk. Guys, this is an academic exam. If I were you, I would stick to either blue or black and wouldn't be very adventurous. Red pen. Not necessarily wrong, by the way. No. Do I get extra points if I write more than the limit? I think no, there are no extra points for more words. I would say for task 2, between 250 and 280, 90, even, you're safe. In task 1, 150 to 180-ish, again, you're safe. Well, Gunnar, as I said, it depends on the context. Gunnar said on the previous seminar, if 10 words less is okay, but if it is 11 at this time is okay. So Gunnar is asking whether how many words less is okay. Well, it depends on the context. We look at the work. If it really needs improvement, hello again, hello again, hello again. Can you hear me now? Hello, hello. Who hacked the system? No one hacked the system. No, no, no. It was actually an accident. It was me, guys. I have to accept. It was me. I knocked something down. I did. A clumsy teacher. I was going to move my computer one way and then I dropped lots of things. Oh, I'm okay. The computer is not. No, joking. We're both okay. We're both okay. So I was saying, I kept on talking a little bit. Then I realized that you may not be able to hear me, and that was right. So let me see. Where was I? Where was I? I was answering one specific question. Wait, what was that? Oh, right. This 10 words less, 11 words less, whichever. Right. So I think it is a very good idea to hit the word count, not to take risks. Oh, right, Gunnar, that was all because of you. Another question about the writing. If I don't write 250 words, it means I didn't meet the requirements. And yes, Emiliano, actually, this is what I wanted to say. There is a requirement of at least 250 words. But if you write 249, if you write 249, we would look at the context. All right. And if the work is good, I think 249 is quite safe, but still, you know, it's important to meet the requirements. In Albania, when we say when you forget what you were saying, it means you're lying. No, I wasn't lying about the IELTS requirements, Rudens. You can always double check. And yeah, that's that. Okay, now let's go to the writing frequently asked questions. I think that's what's next. Absolutely. Right. So, how can candidates improve their writing skills? Well, I think reading model answers is the first step. So read good model answers and see what makes a good essay, what makes a good task one, what makes a 7 task 1, task 2. Then start producing your own work. Road to IELTS, official IELTS materials by the British Council and Cambridge University. See those, analyze those, okay? I think describe a successful task 1 and task 2 essay. We covered both, but remember, for a successful task 1, academic task 1, you need at least 3 paragraphs and as one introductory sentence, one overview, and one detailed paragraph. And you can change the order if you like. It can be an introductory sentence, an overview, and a detailed paragraph, right? And wait, what happened to my chats? Okay, they're here. Let me minimize this. I'm organizing my screen again. Chat box here. I want to see everything very clearly. Lovely. Okay, so that would be a good task 1. And for the general training test takers, ladies and gentlemen, read the requirements. What is the tone of the letter? Is it an informal letter? Is it a friendly letter, I mean? Or is it a formal letter? First, remember this. Then try, do your best to address all parts of the... We can't hear you. Please fix your microphone. Absolutely. Is it better, Sadie? All right, perfect. Yeah, actually, it was toned over. If you're a general test taker, in the letter, in task 1, make sure you address all parts of the question. Okay? And successful task 2 essay for both modules, an introduction, 2 development paragraphs, and 1 conclusion. And remember to add your opinion in the introduction. I would say the last sentence of the introduction paragraph should be your opinion. Many American colleges and universities say thesis statement, and I like to say opinion sentence. So your opinion sentence should be at the end of your introduction. Next slide, please. Okay, well, can we go back? Have I covered? All right, thank you very much. Does spelling count in the IELTS test? Of course, spelling counts everywhere before you ask. Now let's go. Well, Zainab, I think you can find band 8, 8.5 and 8.5 and 9 essays. Yeah, have a look. Test day do's and don'ts, ladies and gentlemen. Well, the first item, of course, arrive in good time. I don't want to even, spend time on that. And you can take only your pen, pencil, eraser, and your ID with you. I'm afraid your super smartphones and super smart gadgets aren't coming into the exam room with you, including your super smart watches if you own one. Follow the instructions very, very carefully. IELTS is not only an English test, but we also test your understanding of English instructions. So please follow the instructions on your question booklets very well. And that's it, really. Can I take a bottle of water with me? Yes, you can, Rudens, but there shouldn't be any coverage, colors, paper on the bottle. Next slide, please. And so, last but not least, we got the IELTS materials slide. As I kept on referring to, Road to IELTS, please have a look at this. When you register your exam through the British Council, you will have access to 30 hours of free training. Road to IELTS. Try to benefit from this. And then art books and study materials. Well, here are the two websites, britishcouncil.org/take IELTS and learnenglish.britishcouncil.org. Don't forget to visit those websites. Will I be able to watch this video later one more time? Yes, you may. You will be sent a link tomorrow. So good news, Anna. And the last one, there are many free applications by the British Council. I mean, when you go to your application store, doesn't matter what smartphone you're using, when you type in British Council, you would see the list. And remember what I said, my favorite ones are audio and video and great videos. And this one is dedicated to IELTS specifically, IELTS Word Power. I think you should use it as well.